I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and today on the Retro Hunting Adventures, I'm going to go over 9 Super Famicom games that I just picked up for $1 each, and tell you which ones I liked and which ones I didn't, and rank them from 9 to 1. Stay tuned after these words from MegaRan.
Yo, this is MegaManFan, and you need to rock and or roll on over to Mr. MegaManFan's YouTube channel, because it's all that rush to make it happen. Peace!
Alright, so let's get the worst out of the way first. This is YuYu Show, which I had high hopes for since I was familiar with the anime, but I'm sadly going to have to rank this one number 9 out of 9, and I will show you why. Now, at first glance, this doesn't seem so bad because this is actually a pretty high quality animation for a 16-bit cartridge game. Obviously, it's still frames moving up and down over a scrolling background, but it still gives the illusion of motion, especially with the character's eyes blinking, so hey, props where they're due for finding ways within the limitations of a cartridge size to put an animated opening scene into the beginning of this game. But unfortunately, it goes downhill from there because this turns out to be a fighting game, and I use the term fighting in the most loose sense because it's turn-based fighting. It's like you're controlling a mech, and the mech is Yu Yu Hakusho's body, and you have to time the button presses to throw a punch, and when I try, I always miss, and when my opponent tries, he always hits. So this is extremely tedious and frustrating. If I could just stand in front of him like a fighting game, moving left to right, throwing punches, kicks, combos, and attacks, that would be fun, but controlling a character like a mech, it's not fun. Number 8 is Super Robot Wars Tizen EX, and I admit if I knew Japanese, this would probably be more fun, but even so, this game turns out to not be in my wheelhouse at all. Now, this is a game that would have benefited from controls like a mech where you have a giant robot and you do battle with other giant robots, but no, it turns out to be a tactical turn-based game where you move units around a playfield and your opponent moves units around a playfield, and then those units do battle with each other. So you're very much not controlling the action, you are more the general controlling the units on the field and they're controlling the action. Which would be great if I understood the language or if there was an English patch for this so that I could figure out what to do with each of these units. But without the benefit of that, I'm just randomly picking options on the menu and trying to get things to move along. And my enemy seems to have a much better grasp on it than I do because it's computer controlled. The AI obviously doesn't need to translate it into English. It already knows what it's doing. So I'm not getting anywhere here. Number 7 would almost certainly rank higher if I had the English language patch for it, and this is Super Boat Race. This seemed like such an easy concept on paper. Just take the idea behind RC Pro-Am, but boats, or Micro Machines, but boats, and yet somehow the language barrier prevents me from even doing that because when I try to start a race, no matter what options I pick, I get engine out. There's only 2 shoulder buttons, 4 action buttons, select and start. What am I doing wrong that I get engine out? Does that mean I don't have an engine in the boat? Does that mean the engine fell off the boat? I'm not even sure what the translation is there. And without any knowledge of how to control the boats, it gets worse because when I finally managed to get a race going and it didn't say engine out, I wasn't even controlling the boats. The only thing I could do was change the camera from one boat to the next so I could follow the boats as they went around the track. Yeah, it didn't even give me the option to control the boat I was playing with. If it wasn't actually fun to switch the camera from one boat to the next, I probably would have ranked this even lower, but considering I could actually accomplish something, which was very little, but still something, that still gives me incentive to rank it higher than Yu Yu Hakusho or Super Robot Wars Tyson EX. I feel that I could actually race in this game if somebody could tell me what the menu options were, or if I had a patch so that I could get into an actual race without it saying engine out. There's definitely something here. I don't know if it's really great or good or just average. It's just inaccessible to me at this time. That leads us to number 6, which is Super Air Diver, the first of these 9 Super Famicom games where I was actually in control of what I was doing. In fact, the funny thing about Super Air Diver is a lot of this game is in English already, far more than I expected there to be for a Super Famicom game, and I'm not using a patch of any kind to play this. This is the Japanese presentation as it is, but as you can see here, Jake Steele, it's a code emergency from Jake Steele. Choose your plane, and then it gives you the information in English, the weapon equipment in English, mission 1 is in English, all this stuff is in English, so somehow either I accidentally stumbled onto an English patch ROM for this game, or it's just all in English, but the cart is definitely a Super Famicom cart, I can guarantee you that. And it's, what can I say, it's a air fighting combat game where you're finding enemy aircraft and shooting missiles at them, and they're shooting missiles at you, and you've got to use the radar to guide yourself to them. You can see the little red blips showing you where they are, so you find the enemies, you line them up in your sights, and you shoot them down. It's a very Top Gun-esque game. In fact, I could see myself spending a lot more time playing this one than the amount of time that I filmed it for this video. So at $1 for this Super Famicom game, this was the first genuine hit of the bunch. Super Air Diver, super cheap, super worth it. At number 5 on the list, we have Pilot Wings, which ordinarily would rank a lot higher, but I'll give you 2 reasons why in this case it does not. Reason number 1 is that even though it's only $1, it's all in Japanese. Now, if you're intimately familiar with Pilot Wings already, no problem. You can get through the menus without being able to read any of the text, and the gameplay is identical as far as I can tell. But you could justify this if you wanted to say, oh, I'm dumping the ROM and I'm patching in the English, so I own the game, I just had to go through extra steps. Well, then you're saving 15 to 20 bucks over the North American version, but do you really want to go to that much trouble when you could just buy and play the North American version? And that brings me to reason number 2, which is that I only bought this for the cosmetic looks, and if you want to spend $1 on a Super Famicom game with a perfect label like I just did, more power to you, but compared to the fact that you can play a North American copy, there's no reason to do that. I just have a North American copy that has a really terrible looking label because it was used as a rental at a video store. So I just wanted another copy of Pilot Wings for my own personal collection, regardless of the fact that it's all in Japanese. So don't be like me. Number 4 on my list of 9 Super Famicom games for $1 is Super Fire Pro Wrestling X, and this one is most excellent. Now, if you're familiar with the Fire Pro Wrestling series, you know that a lot of these games never came out in North America, or the ones that did got reskinned and made into a game that would be recognizable to people who follow pro wrestling in the United States, like WWF No Mercy 64. So it's nice to have an original Japanese Fire Pro Wrestling game that's got the original characters and the original action. But I obviously need to get the controls down a little bit, having not played this version, because the very first thing I did in the game was threw a dropkick and missed. And I need to get the grappling system down, I need to figure out how to do suplexes, how to climb the turnbuckle and do moves off the top rope, how to get rolling Germans, how to do all the fun things that I want to do, instead of my blonde-haired opponent having his way with me and suplexing me all over the ring like Brock Lesnar with Zack Ryder. It's not even close right now. So I need to get good at Super Fire Pro Wrestling X, but I have a feeling that once I do, I'm going to love this game even more. Number 3 on the list is Super Mario World, or as it was also called in Japan, and this is weird to a North American, Super Mario Bros. 4. Other than the strangeness of that label and it being considered a sequel to the NES game, I can't think of anything that really stands out compared to the United States release, which is why I picked this one up for here. Number 2 on the list, and absolutely worth the price of one measly dollar, is Super Tetris 2 Plus Bomb Bliss. Now, obviously, there's a million ways to play Tetris, and there's more than one way to play Bomb Bliss, but to nicely have it all packaged together in one Super Famicom cart, which is exclusive to Japan and never came out in North America, that makes this an instant winner. And if you've never played any of the Bomb Bliss variants that are out there, this one is a lot of fun because what you do isn't just combining lines together to make them disappear. You've actually got little red spots that are bombs, and when you make the lines disappear and there's a bomb in that line, you create an explosion. And the more of them that are grouped together into a block or a line, the bigger the explosions will be. And if the explosions match up to other explosions on the screen, then you get a chain reaction of bombs going off. And it's really fun to set off those combos and see everything on the screen get wiped out, which you're about to see me do right here as I demonstrate how the game is played. Kaboom! Try this one out. For $1, it's well worth it. And now coming back full circle to where this video started, number 1 on the list for $1 is Dragon Quest V. Now, you will need to dump this and use an English language patch to play the game, but it is absolutely worth it, and it checks all of the boxes that you would want to check. First box. This was the first Dragon Quest game to not be released outside of Japan. It stayed in Japan. It never got ported. It never got an official translation. So it's up to you to import a copy, dump it, and patch it if you want to play this game. Second reason, it's stupidly fun. Right from the start, the plot envelops you in the game by making you be the royal heir of the king and the queen, Pappas and Martha. The character you create is born to them as a baby, and then tragedy befalls the royal family. And the next thing you know, you're grown up. Time has passed. You've lived a life as a young boy growing up to be a young man or young woman or young person, whatever. The point is, it sets the table for you and then drops you into the game and says, now here you are. You have to make this way in the world with the circumstances that have been handed to you. You've been dealt a bad hand and you've got no other choice. Deal with it and be the hero of this story. I love that setup. I love this game. Dragon Quest V is a game that should have been ported, but there were apparently quote-unquote programming issues at the time. I'm not sure what those were, but such is life. Much after the lifespan of the Super Famicom, some ports of it did finally come out. There was a PlayStation 2 remake. That one stayed exclusive to Japan, so forget about it. There was a remake for Nintendo DS. At first, it was only slated for Japan, but then in 2008, Square Enix opened up a North American website and acknowledged that it would come out here under the trademark of The Hand of the Heavenly Bride. So that's your Dragon Quest V for Nintendo DS, if you want to look for it, but it's going to be much more expensive than just $1. So I still recommend getting the Japanese game, dumping it, patching it, and playing it for yourself on the emulator of your choice. Or if you put it onto an EverDrive with the patched ROM, you've just created a version of Dragon Quest V that you can play that never got released here. You own the cartridge, but now you've got a version you can use on an EverDrive, and why not do it that way if you can? Play it on original hardware. It's even more fun. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and this has been 9 Super Famicom games for $9, ranked from 9 to number 1. I hope you've had some fun watching it, and I hope you've gotten some ideas for things you would or wouldn't import based on this list. I'll do this again sometime, so stay tuned. I'm sure I'll have more opportunities, especially now that FedEx is shipping from Japan to the United States, so I can avail myself of that opportunity, whereas before, during the pandemic, it just wasn't possible. See you all again in a week with a new retro hunting adventure. Like, share, comment, subscribe. All those things help the channel out. Peace.